All right, let's talk about a book that's been called a Bible for anyone who wants to understand how power and influence really work. It's controversial, it's intense, and it lays bare this world of strategy that's happening all around us, just under the surface.
Of course, I'm talking about The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. In this breakdown, we're going to distill some of its most crucial lessons about how power is understood, how you get it, and how you hold on to it. You see, the whole book really boils down to one huge, timeless question. How is power actually won, used, and kept? The answers, well, they aren't always pretty, but they are definitely revealing. Okay, let's dive into this.
So where do we start? You might think it's all about attacking, but nope. The first set of rules is all about playing defense. It's about surviving, watching, and building a solid foundation so you can operate safely.
The very first law is one of the most critical. And honestly, for a lot of people, it feels totally backwards. It goes against everything we're told about trying to stand out. The law is never outshine the master. It means you have got to fight that urge to show off how talented you are if it's going to make your superiors feel insecure.
The logic here is just pure human psychology. Look, if you make your boss or your mentor look smarter, you become this valuable, non-threatening ally. But the moment they see you as a rival to their own brilliance, they will find a way to get rid of you. It's a fatal mistake to bruise the ego of the people above you.
Okay, this next one is going to sting a little, because it directly challenges something we all value, friendship. Greene's argument is that in the game of power, friends can actually be way more dangerous than your enemies.
Now, what's the crazy logic behind this? Well, think about it. A friend knows you inside and out, which makes them really susceptible to envy and quiet betrayal. An enemy, on the other hand, they don't have that baggage. If you can turn an old enemy into a new ally, they have so much more to prove, and they often work harder for your trust, which makes them, surprisingly, a lot more reliable.
So we're still in defense mode here, and what's your most important piece of armor? It's something you have to protect at all costs, your reputation. Just think of your reputation as this force field that walks into the room before you do. It totally shapes how people see you and react to you without you even saying a word. A strong one, it opens doors and intimidates rivals all by itself. A damaged one can sink you before you ever get a chance to make your case. All right, so you've built your defenses. Your foundation is secure. Now what? Well, now the game shifts. We're moving from defense to offense. These next laws are all about actively grabbing influence and making sure your presence is felt. In the world of power, being invisible is basically a death sentence. It is so much better to be talked about, even if you're being attacked, than to be completely ignored. Attention is literally the currency of power.
So how do you do it? Well, the strategy is kind of a three-part play. First, you have to stand out by being bold. Second, create a little bit of mystery so people can't help but talk about you. And third, above all else, never, ever let yourself just fade into the background.
And here we go. This is probably one of the most ruthless and most famous laws in the entire book. See, powerful people throughout history have absolutely mastered the art of using the work, the brains, and the time of other people while making sure all the credit and recognition flows right back to them.
This law is all about how pointless arguing can be. I mean, you might win the debate, sure, but you'll almost always create resentment in the process. Real power is shown, not spoken.
Look, here's the bottom line. An argument is just a temporary victory that often creates a long-term enemy. But a real result, a success that people can see with their own eyes, that's undeniable proof. It doesn't need an explanation, and it leaves zero room for debate. You gotta let your work do the talking.
Gaining power is one thing, but the real challenge? It's keeping it. This last set of laws is all about the sophisticated, long-term strategies you need to hold on to the influence you've built.
It's pretty simple, right? If people can predict your next move, they can prepare for it, and they can counter it. But if your actions are always a little unpredictable, they're kept constantly off balance. They won't know how to react, and that forces them to be cautious and respectful of your power.
And this next one, wow. This is some next-level 4D chess stuff. It shows just how subtle these later laws get. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to look weak. By surrendering, you can lull your opponent into a false sense of security, which gives you time to regroup and plan a knockout punch when they least expect it. It's the ultimate strategic weapon.
So, after all these laws, where does this game of power actually happen? And what are we supposed to do with all this kind of brutal information?
The answer is Pretty much everywhere. We're talking about your office, politics, of course, but even in your personal relationships. To ignore these laws isn't to be above them. It's just choosing to be a pawn in a game you don't even realize you're playing.
But, and this is a huge but, there's a massive warning label on all of this woven through the book. This knowledge is a weapon, and power that's used without wisdom, without restraint, it doesn't just create enemies, it almost guarantees your own downfall.
And that really leaves us with the final question, doesn't it? The 48 laws don't describe the world as it should be, but they do a pretty good job of describing it as it often is. So the question isn't whether these laws are good or evil, it's what will you choose to do now that you understand how the game is played.